Peace everyone, Unmask Art here, and welcome back to the Pastel tutorial. Today we're going to be starting on some skin tones, and I have four colors that I'm going to start with to create the foundation, kind of the base layers for the skin. And the goal for today is just to fill in the base layer on just the right arm here. So I might be able to get to the left shoulder also, since there's not a whole lot to do down there. So that's going to be the plan for today. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend, had a good Monday, and yeah, is ready to enjoy some pastels. So I'm going to go over the four colors I have here. These four colors, I'll just be using these today. I won't add any more. The first color is going to be the highlight color, and this color we used last week as the highlight color in the shirt, and this is 111. I am of course using the Carbothello pastel pencils. The next color is 640, followed by 642, and last but not least 770. So those are the four colors that I'm going to be working with today, and if you guys have any questions throughout the live stream, don't hesitate to ask. Hello, Sherry, Aussie artist, Adya, Catherine, Chrissy, good day to you as well. Glad you were able to make it. Sergio, my voice is the exact backdrop you needed. Well, that's fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to just start with blocking out the highlights using that 110 color. This color might seem very, very odd for skin tones, but given the lighting in this particular project, I can assure you this is the color. I'm just using my kneaded eraser to lift off a little bit more of the graphite that I have on the paper there. That way I'm not fighting to cover it up. And there's a highlight right along the elbow here, so I'm just going to kind of fill this in. Oh, hey there, Tessa. Good to see you. Carol, Linda, welcome, welcome. I'm doing today's live stream quite a bit earlier than I normally stream, and the reason for that is my wife and I are meeting with a realtor today to put in an offer on a new flat. Last week I had mentioned that I was going to go look at a new place to live, and we did, and we want to buy it. So we're putting in an offer, and if the offer is accepted, then of course we're going to buy it. And if the offer is declined, we're going to offer to rent it. So either way, we want to move into the flat, but we'd rather buy it than rent it, because buying makes more sense than renting. So I might finally get a studio space. That's what I'm super excited for it. I'm really, really excited. The realtor seemed really nice, and she seemed pretty open to offers. So we're gonna go discuss that with her today, and hopefully I'll have some good news for you guys on Thursday. But I have to leave a little bit early today, which is why I'm streaming early. And hopefully some good news coming up on the next live stream. There is room for a studio. I'm gonna get a whole room about the size of my bedroom right now. Oh, I'm super excited. I'm gonna build like a desk setup just for live streaming. So if I can get a studio space like that set up where I can just walk in and click go live, oh man, it would just be so awesome. I would live stream more often. I'd probably live stream 5 days a week, just just out of pure excitement. I don't even care that YouTube penalizes my channel for live streaming. I would just do it every day, just about every day. You guys would get so many more tutorials, so many more live streams, so many more projects. Having a dedicated space would make just a massive difference to my creativity and to my productivity and all of that. So fingers crossed. Yeah, room for supplies, room for finished projects, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, yeah. All right, almost finished putting in the highlights with this 110 color here. The highlights aren't very big. There's not like a whole lot to the highlights, so just blocking them in very broadly where I have my line art sketched out. Do they not like you doing live streams? Why? That's a really good question. It feels very random. It feels very random. So I came across this last year. Well, actually, my first experience with it was, I think, 2 years ago for Inktober, where I was really, really confused at the drop off of like subscribers and views and all of this stuff while I was doing Inktober. And I was like, how is it that I'm producing like all this new content, but all of my numbers are just they're dropping down like crazy? And I've had this conversation a little bit on previous live streams. I don't want to get too deep into it, but essentially last year the same thing happened. Last year was a terrible, terrible year for my channel. It just like crashed and burned, and I was like, I don't understand like what's happening here. And I looked at the analytics, and it always happened when I was doing daily live streams. So the month of March last year, I did the self-portrait where I live streamed every day, and then I did Inktober as well. And right when those months hit, my channel's going up, 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 and then I start streaming daily, and then it just drops off like a cliff. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I just Googled, like, why is live streaming hurting my YouTube channel? And other people have had the same problem. And I don't know, it's probably some glitch in the matrix with the big bad, algorithm machine, and it may not do it on purpose, but it penalizes me for streaming every day. And so yeah, it's not the best for my channel. All right, so now that I have the highlights blocked in, I'm going to switch to the darkest color, and this is the 770 color. And essentially what I'm going to do here is there's a few bits of detail in the shadows, like down here in her armpit, right here where her inside of her elbow, and then some of her fingers and the palm of her hand up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to block in kind of a general shadow shape with this dark color, and then I'm going to go over the skin with the lighter color and right over this color, but I want these shadows to remain there. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of the shadows so that I don't lose the features of the arm. So just a quick little pass in the shadows with this color, just like that. I'll do a little bit here. this is a softer shadow here. It's not a hard line, so I'll just put a little bit of that color right there. And then her hand being separated from her hair. So I'm just going to kind of go around my liner like this. And then also there's a couple creases in her fingers that you can see right here and right here. So I'll just put like a little V there. And right here on her fingers. So very, very simple. Keeping this as easy as possible for those of you I know are following along. Yeah, I love doing live streams because it's, you know, it's like getting to do art with all of you and just hanging out and chatting. It's my favorite thing to do. But you know, I do, since I do this for a living, it's very important that my YouTube channel not be suppressed. And unfortunately, my live streams suppress my channel if I do them too often. The 2 a week seems to be the sweet spot. Any more than that, it seems to go downhill. But I'd like to have the space and the setup to just kind of record videos more regularly. That's the problem with my setup now, is that it's very hard to have it set up and then record a video, because I have to move everything around and it's just a constant hassle. And I have really poor lighting in this room, and there's nothing I can do about it because I don't have space for studio lights. Oh, hey, what's up, Electro? Konnichiwa. Is there a difference between pastel paper and pastel matte? Yes. Pastel paper can be a variety of things, actually. You have like the thin eggshell textured pastel paper that has like that honeycomb texture on it. And then you have sand papers, you have sanded papers, you have gessoed papers, and all of those can be described as pastel paper. Pastel matte is a pastel paper, like it's meant for pastels. And so pastel paper is just a general term to describe what the paper is used for, or what it's designed to be used for. Whereas pastel matte is a type of paper made by Clairefontaine. So it's the name of the paper. It's not a type of paper. Although since there is only one pastel matte, technically you could say that it is a type of paper as well. But pastel matte is a sanded paper. Oh, good morning, Steve. So now that I've finished blocking in a little bit of where those shadows are, essentially I'm going to go over the entire arm with a base color of the 642. And essentially all of the skin outside of the context of the highlights is this color, or pretty close to it. The skin has like a really nice like purple to orange shift, and then it's all in shadow. So that makes the skin really, really purple looking, because you have skin that usually has quite a bit of red tones in it, and then shadows tend to be cooler or bluer, and so you mix red and blue, you get purple. So that's why the skin is very, very purple. And so I'm just going to do a base color of this 642. And then from there, once we have this base coat down, we can fine tune with other colors. We can bring in a touch of yellow. There's a little bit of yellow that comes through, a little bit of orange, a little bit of red, all of those fun colors. But I won't be doing that today. I'm just working on the base coat today. try to cover up the entire arm and then hopefully have time to jump over to the left shoulder before calling it a day. I'm streaming at a different time today because I have to go into town to meet a realtor with my wife. That's the short answer. The longer answer is about 15-20 minutes ago. Probably not that long though. Maybe like 5 minutes ago. When you're using pastel color pencils, can you post at the beginning what pencils you are planning to use so we don't forget? Like in the chat. Oh, yeah, somebody in the chat write this for me so that I can continue. So the four colors are 110, 642, 770, and 640. I checked my my extra pencils because some of these colors are getting kind of short, and I was like, oh no, there's a lot to color here, and these colors here I don't have any extra pencils of, so probably gonna have to order some supplies and get a couple extra Carbothello pencils. Thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate that. Would this apply to colored pencils as well with the base color and skin coloring? Not as much, but pretty close. Pretty close. There wouldn't be a huge difference between the pastel pencils and the colored pencils as far as the approach goes. Your color selection might be a little more precise, and that would probably include maybe 1-2 other colors. I'm just using 4 here because I like to use as few colors as possible when I can. But with colored pencils, you might have like a 5 or 6 colors, maybe. And then you'll just layer them pretty much the same way. Kind of block the highlights, and then just slowly build up from the shadows like I did. You know, apply a little bit of the darker color into the shadow to protect where they are, and then just slowly build up your colors until you cover up the paper, because that's essentially what I'm going to be doing here. I'm just going to be using this one color for now. Hopefully this pencil will last this project, because who knows how long it will take for me to get a few pencils from Jackson's. I have like a whole bunch of luminance and polychromos and Carbothellos in my drawer over there, because I went through my pencils. I don't know how long ago it was, but I went through them and made like a list of all the colors that I primarily use and the ones that I was short on, and bought a whole bunch of all of them. But the colors that I'm using today for this project, I don't have a single extra one, and that 770 color is only that big now, so fortunately I won't have to use too much of it, but it's a very important color in this project. Would I consider using a soft pastel? No, I would not, because the fine edge here requires a tremendous amount of precision, and That you just can't get that with soft pastels. And when you apply soft pastels, in order to apply pastel pencils over top of them, you essentially have to scrape off what is underneath. Because pastel pencils are not soft pastels, they're hard pastels. That's why they don't blend as far, that's why they don't turn into powder as easy, all of that stuff. The core of them is a hard pastel so that they hold their form and you can sharpen them to a point and all of that. Sorry if I miss anybody's questions, I apologize. You can always ask them again in chat if I do miss them. When looking at a drawing, how do I know what colors to use? Experience. And where you get experience the best is by analyzing your reference photo. Analyze your reference photo, examine the colors individually, isolate the colors, and then make the best estimation as to the fewest amount of colors that you can use to get something that will look close to what you're going for. There's no like big secret to what colors to use other than knowing what the colors look like isolated. And once you isolate the colors and you kind of get an idea of what they look like individually, that will also help build your confidence in making your color choices when you get to that point. And experience will teach you, how to match the color. Because there's so many different colors that can appear in a reference photo, and 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a pencil that is that exact color. So you need to have experienced with your pencils or with your medium, doesn't really matter what it is, in order to know which colors will help get you there the best. Yeah, I probably could have used some pan pastels or whatnot for a quick foundation. At the very least, I could probably tone the paper so it's not so bright white. But I keep these tutorials with as few products as possible. I don't want to increase the number of products that I'm using in the projects because remember everyone, these tutorials that I've been streaming every Tuesday and Thursday, they are not usually available to everybody on YouTube. They're my Patreon tutorials that I've opened up to the public. Eventually they will go back to just being Patreon tutorials. And so I always keep the products that I use to a bare minimum. That way there's not a huge cost in supplies for people that want to try the tutorial. The Carbothello pencils are about $60. For the soft pastels that I use in the background, you can use any brand that you want. The soft pastels, they're super flexible in whatever brand you want to use. And so if I were to start incorporating pan pastels, that's just another expense that other people would have to another expense that people would have to go out and buy to follow the tutorial. And I don't want to do that to people, because I have a lot of beginners on Patreon. You know, a lot of people, you know, sometimes when I do a portrait, you know, I have 3 or 4 people saying, oh, this is the first portrait that I'm ever going to try. And I don't want to overwhelm them with the cost of supplies. A small feather texture. Treat feathers like hair. So feathers have a direction in which, you know, the little hairs, feathers basically are like cartilage with little hairs that stick out on either side. Essentially just treat it like hair. So the direction that those little feather bits are going, just color in that direction. That way you maintain that level of, that small subtle texture that feathers have. How much do soft pastels cost? It totally depends on the brand that you go with. If what I recommend, just getting like a studio or student level set of soft pastels. Get something with a brand name like Faber-Castell or something. Faber-Castell is a really great brand of pastels. And I would use the Faber-Castell ones if I had the option of buying them individually. Are there basic guidelines when combining soft pastels and pastel pencils? I would say not that I'm like not like an official guideline that I can think of, but if you apply soft pastels to pastel mat and then you try to use pastel pencils right on top, what you're going to notice is that the pencils won't show up. And what you'll have to do with the pencils is essentially scrape away the soft pastel until you get down to the paper. And even then, the pencil won't really show up that much. So my general guideline is preserve the area where you intend to use pencils, like what I've done with this project, and try to keep them separate. They don't want to work very well together. Or if you are going to apply pastel pencils over top of soft pastels, keep the layer of soft pastel as light as possible. Very, very light. Don't cover the paper. That way there's still tooth of the paper left. I've made several live streams without using pastel pencils. I have several live tutorials where I only use soft pastels and I don't use any pencils. You can go through my library of pastel tutorials here on YouTube, and there's several. And then I also have a pastel course, an intro to pastel course on my website, where I primarily only use the soft pastels. I think there's only 2 projects where I use pencils, and you don't even have to use pencils where I use them. You can just skip it entirely and use the soft pastels. This top part of the arm is going to be really hard to color from a distance. I'm going to have to flip the project upside down. But I can try to cover as much as possible before I do such a thing. I have to go back over this again and again in order to cover the paper. One thing you want to be careful with is when you're applying this color over pretty much the entire skin, don't press hard thinking that it's going to speed up the process, because you want to preserve as much of the tooth of the paper as you can so that you can apply other colors really nicely over it without having lines through everything. Never be sorry for asking me questions, because I never get enough of them and I love answering them. Absolutely, Catherine. Can I spray a textured fixative over soft pastels and use pastel pencils on top? Probably, but I wouldn't recommend it. I don't recommend any fixative ever on pastels because it just makes them look ugly. I've tried several fixatives for pastels, and at the end of the day, they'll never look the same after you spray them, and they will never look as good if you spray them. So I don't recommend spraying your pastel work. I think I think spraying fixative on pastel work is like buying a Ferrari just to go grocery shopping. Do I work with both hands? Yes, I do. Sometimes it's just easier, depending on the angle, to work with my left hand. And also, I'll work with my left hand when my right hand gets tired. Oh, what's up? What's up, Timothy? That's cool. I'm glad you came over to YouTube to say hi. I don't use fixatives at all. So preserving, so you don't have to do anything to preserve pastels. They are pure pigment and they don't need anything to preserve them. Now, as far as protecting them, obviously, you can't, you know, juggle your pastel work with your hands because you'll wipe it away. So, rule number one, just don't touch it. Rule number two, if you're going to hang it in your house, hang it behind glass, not plastic or plexiglass, because the static electricity from the plexiglass will pull the pigment right off of the paper. Rule number three, don't let the pastel, the front of the pastel work touch the glass if you frame it behind glass. And for the last way, if you're not hanging your work and you're just storing it the way that I do, I use glassine paper and foam board. So I have a piece of foam board. I put pastel paintings, then glassine paper over it. You can stack more pastel paintings, then just put pieces of glassine paper in between each layer, and you're fine. It's a hassle and it takes up a lot of space, but that's what I recommend for protecting your work. Spraying it with fixative does not necessarily protect it. I mean, not only is it going to make it look worse, but it's also just, it's not really going to protect it from anything. You still can't touch it with your hands. You still have to frame it behind glass. You still can't frame it behind plexiglass. And if you're going to store it in a drawer, you still need to put glassine paper on top of it. So the idea that fixative is going to magically make your pastel work like impervious to the world, that's simply not the case. And so you have to do all the things that you would do otherwise, even if you didn't spray it with fixative. So you might as well not ruin the work by spraying it with fixative and just take care of it the right way in the first place. I'm good with words. Well, thank you for that. I credit that to my endless reading while I was in the military. Nothing builds a vocabulary like reading books. And I read a lot of books when I was in the military. At what stage do I sharpen your pencil when they get blunt? Yeah, I try to sharpen them as few times as possible. But if I'm covering like a large area, like I'm just kind of doing, like this pencil is about as dull as I can take. But like I don't need precision when I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I only need precision around the edges, right? So when I get to the edges, you can see I skipped the edges here on the arm because I need to flip it upside down because I can't quite maneuver. Even my left hand won't work. So I'm gonna have to turn it sideways or something to get those edges. But in the middle here, I still need plenty of coverage with this pencil, so might as well use as much of it as I can before sharpening it. Because I mean, no matter what, if you sharpen a pencil, you're grinding away usable part as well to get it to that point. So you might as well use it as much as you can before you start grinding it away into oblivion. Let's see. So what medium is fixatives made for? Fixatives are good for graphite, good for colored pencil, and for preservation you can use like there's, I don't know, there are varnishes for oil, but they're like the equivalent to fixatives for like graphite and stuff. Fixatives are great for graphite and colored pencil. Fixatives make sense in that regard, but when it comes to pastels, fixatives don't make any sense. I don't think there's a respectable pastel artist alive that would use a fixative on their pastel work. And if there is, I disagree with it because the soft nature of pastels and the way that they look without fixative, I don't know why anybody would want to change that. Like if you want to get rid of that texture and that look, that softness, then you might as well just be painting with acrylic or something. Framing under glass to not allow the painting to touch the glass. Correct. There has to be space between the painting itself and the glass. You can't lay the glass on top because any tiny bit of moisture, the minuscule amount of moisture, which unless you have moisture control in your house or whatever, that museums use, the humidity control, the tiniest bit of moisture dampening the pastels if it's up against the glass. As soon as you remove that pastel painting, half of it's going to be stuck to the glass. So there has to be space there. You can't have it touching the glass. I understand, Electro. No need to feel bad there. I understand. At the risk of sounding super ignorant, I have to ask, how do I frame pastel art under glass without it touching the glass? Well, there's a couple different ways. One, the first and probably the most obvious way is frames that are built for that. Not all frames have a glass front that is designed to sit against the picture or the painting or whatever's behind it. There's raised glass frames. The second and probably the easiest way to get around that is to use a mounting frame for your pastel painting using, what is that called? I can't remember what the stuff is called. Somebody help me out here. It's that like thick cardboard stuff. What do they call that? I have a couple sheets of it in my drawer. I can't remember what it's called. It's very difficult to cut. It's real thick, dense, like cardboard stuff. And it's usually, I don't know, about 2-3 millimeters thick. You don't need like a huge space between the glass and the pastel painting. You just need enough space for it not to touch. That's all. Mounting board. I think it's mounting board that it's called. But essentially, you get sheets of mounting board, cut out the rectangle, tape the pastel painting to the back. Matte board. Yes, matte board. You just tape the pastel painting to the back, and you'll have that 2-3 millimeter distance between the front and then when the glass lays over top of the matte board, you have that distance there. And you can get mounting board or matte board at different widths, so depending on how safe you want to be. I need to sharpen this pencil, so give me a couple seconds. All right. Now I'm using the same color, that 642 color. Gotta keep working to cover the paper. This is not a difficult stage in the coloring process here. It is just tiresome, tedious, very, very simple. Actually, I'm gonna rotate this now so that I can finish the edges there. Finish the edges on the other side of the arm. Yeah, it's still reasonably in. Yeah, it's still reasonably in frame. I'm gonna try to do this as quick as possible so that I can flip it back right side up. How many layers am I going to do of that color? Just enough to cover up the paper. So like 2 generous layers, I guess. See all these white spots that you can still see? I kind of want to eliminate that as much as possible. Not totally necessary to cover it up like 100%, because there's still other colors that we need to add into the skin. And those layers will help cover up the paper. But it's best to get it as close as possible to covered. That way you're not fighting to cover it up later on with the other colors. I'd say around the edges you probably want like 100% though. That way you don't have to redo the edges 1,000 times. Do it once and be done with it. Because it's hard to get those clean edges, and the masking film is really great for getting them in one direction, but applying the pastel pencil up to that edge is, yeah, it's kind of tough. How much it costs for the pastel course. So all of my courses on my website are $10, which is a complete bargain in comparison to other courses that you'll find online. I guarantee you will never find a course of my quality at that price. And I think that the people that have bought the course, because a ton of people in chat right now have bought the course, and I think they'll agree with me. Most likely. I put a tremendous amount of effort in my courses, and I make them remarkably cheap, because I think everybody should be able to get them. So I make them as affordable as I can. I make them as affordable as I can afford myself. So how many videos are there? Because you know the difference in the exchange value. Well, in the pastel course, there's 5 projects, and of those 5 projects, it takes you 6.5 hours of videos. Each project is broken up into sections. So some videos are like 10-15 minutes long, but other videos are like 30-40 minutes long. And at the end you'll have 5 paintings. And I gotta say, the quality of work that people that have never used pastels before have turned out from following my courses is nothing short of impressive. Because honestly, I'll get emails, or I'll get messages, or I'll get tagged on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, of people that have completed the course or just completed one of the projects in the course, and it looks exactly like mine. And they're like, this is the first time I've ever even touched pastels, and they turn out just beautiful work. So I think I did pretty well on the courses, instructively, and just explaining the process of each project. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for all the kind words. See, I told you that people in chat would probably agree with me. I think maybe a couple years ago I would have been a little a little more humble about what my courses have to offer. But over the years, time and time again, people have shown me that they're worth something, and I still just offer them for just about the lowest price that any course could ever be offered for. And I've had hundreds of people say that I should increase the price. Hundreds of people saying that I should charge more for my course, but I refuse. All the courses that I will make and will make in the future will remain at the $10 price because I want them to be as widely available as possible. And I will not change that, no matter what. They will always be that price, and I won't change it. I'm 1.7K away from 100,000. All right. That'll probably take 2 more weeks. Yeah, probably take 2 more weeks. Give or take a day. Because I average about 100 subscribers a day. So in about 2 weeks I should hit 100,000. And once I hit 100,000, I'll do the live stream, the special Q&A live stream, and I'll give you guys the long form story of how I became what I am today. And you can ask me all kinds of questions about business and doing art for a living, whatever you want. Ask me all the questions you've been wanting to ask me. And who knows, maybe I'll just sketch something during the live stream. Just hang out, sketch something. Or whatnot, who knows. I'll just do whatever and hang out with you guys. What time will I be doing that stream? I really don't know. Maybe I'll start like 1300 my time. That way it's kind of in the middle of when I usually stream. I mean, I'd love to have it at a time where everybody in the world could watch it, but unfortunately that's just not possible. I could maybe do it in the evening. Because a lot of a really good portion of my viewers are in the US. I have like a medium amount that's in European time, and then I have another large section like in Australia. So if I do the live stream in my evening, it will be good for people in Europe. It will be afternoon time for people in the US, so hopefully a decent time. And then it should be the morning for people in Australia. So that I can kind of cover as much as possible if I do the stream in the evening. So I might do that. Maybe I'll do it on the weekend as well, so less people will be, I don't know, working, if people still work 2 weeks from now. If people are back to work, then maybe the weekend would be a good option. I don't do very many lives. I have not done very many live streams on the weekend, but when I did do them, they actually weren't very good as far as viewership goes. A lot of people, and my assumption was that a lot of people were out and about, enjoying their weekend. Yeah, do a 24-hour stream. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. I love you guys, I do, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. You'll have school in 2 weeks still? Yeah, your guys' 24-hour stream was pretty ridiculous. Yeah, it was definitely a definitely a crazy thing to do. I mean, just the idea that, like, I remember I watched you guys for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I went to sleep and woke up and watched you guys for like another 2 or 3 hours. And just to think that you were streaming the entire time while I was comfortably sleeping in bed just is ridiculous. You're both a little crazy. Okay, I think I can flip this back over. I need to get another piece of glassine paper so I can get this edge here a little bit cleaner. I probably should sharpen my pencil, but I'm going to try to get away with not doing it. All right. So that base color is done. So I'm going to move on to the fourth color. How much percentage of your viewers are Indian? Probably less than 2%. Yeah, I'd have to check. I'd have to check my demographics, but I don't. I don't recall India ever actually being on the list of even top five. I think it's U.S., UK, Australia, and then it would be like Germany next, or Canada. Canada and Germany, those ones are always like fighting back and forth. So the next color that I'm using is 640, and now I'm going to start kind of putting in some of the shadow, and from the darkest shadow here that I applied, I'm going to go over top of that a little bit, and then just going to create a little bit of a gradient leading up to the lighter part of the skin. Now this layer here will start to cover the paper entirely. So this if you're working with this color and you're not covering the paper entirely, then go back to the 642 and apply a little bit more of it, because you don't want to be fighting to cover the paper at this stage. You want the paper to be covered at this point. So just make sure you're not rushing ahead before you have a really good foundation of that 642. Biggest tip for realism. Well, yeah, you pretty much got it there with patience. So instead of the best tip I can give you for realism, let's talk about what is the biggest mistake people make when they think they're creating something realistic. So the biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to create realism is, ironically, that they try to force so much more detail in than exists. That's the biggest mistake that people make. And when you're learning to do realism, oftentimes people are so focused on, getting the details that they overlook the bigger, more important aspects to what makes things look real. The primary goal that you need to focus on when it comes to realism is contrast. You need to get the correct values, no matter what it is. If you get the values correct, it's not really going to matter what the color is, and it's not really going to matter the level of detail that you actually have in the project. Contrast is rule number one. You have to get the values right. Values, now, that's a little bit easier to perfect when you're working monochromatically, say with just black or white paint, or graphite or charcoal, whatever you prefer. If you're working monochromatically, it's all about the contrast, getting the contrast correct. And that's not an easy thing to do. That takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience and a lot of struggling and a lot of analyzing and just, learning to be confident with your light and dark values and mastering everything in between those values. Now, if you're working with color, then of course the next bit is color. So contrast and then color is the next bit. Getting the right colors is going to be the next important part. Contrast will always be above color. So matching your colors is far less important than matching the value of the color. So combining contrast and color, you're gonna spend your life perfecting those two things alone. And the problem is, people that want to get into realism, they try to skip those two things. Instead, they just focus on detail. And I could probably Google like portrait drawings and show you random people's work and explain to you what they're messing up as far as color, contrast, and detail. And you'll see like a ton of graphite portraits, like an overwhelming amount of graphite portraits by people, where I can tell you that they focused way, way more on the details than the color or the contrast. And a lot of that will show up in the hair. If you draw hair with a graphite pencil and it looks like a bowl of spaghetti, then you are one of those people that focuses way too heavily on detail to get realism. Same thing with colored pencils too. You know, people do portraits with colored pencils, and they might like do fairly well with like the face and the eyes and the skin and stuff. But the two things that you'll see most of the time, the hair looks like spaghetti, and the skin is washed out because people are way too afraid to go dark on skin. They're scared to death of it. In the beginning, they're just petrified of using color in the skin. Yeah, going dark in the skin is a very, very common fear that people have. And you can get over that fear by analyzing your reference photos that you're drawing from or coloring from or painting from. Isolate the color, match the color, and then apply it. Just ignore everything else, because your eyes are the worst liars. Your eyes are the worst liars that you have. They're so susceptible to optical illusions and all kinds of trickery, and your brain believes it. And so when we look at pictures and colors and stuff, your eyes will trick your brain into seeing a color that's not even there. And then you try to match that color. In your matching, what you end up doing is matching the color your brain thinks it's seeing rather than what the actual color is. That's what makes coloring and painting so difficult. And when you see somebody that's mastered color, and you know, when they paint, they do like a quick oil painting, or they do like a quick watercolor painting, something that where the color choice is really, really like stark, like it shows up really fast, like in oil paintings or acrylic paintings or watercolor paintings. Like the color can just pop up like really quickly and show up, and they'll just use like really bold colors, and at first you're like, oh my gosh, that color is crazy. And then a couple brush strokes later, you're picking your jaw up off the ground because you can't believe the picture that they just made with a few precise colors. Sorry, I'm checking to see if I missed any of your questions. Am I going to blend this? Yes, absolutely. Most of the blending will be done with the pencils themselves, though. Right now, I'm just building up a little bit of the form. There's a lot of color missing in the skin, but I'm maximizing the colors that I'm using right now, and just building up some of the form. And form is the three-dimensional quality. So that's what I mean by the word form. Making the arm look three-dimensional, so you can see that, you know, I have this deeper shadow, and it's kind of bringing the bicep forward. I have the shoulder here. You can see the arm kind of twisting where the armpit comes up like that. Everything's real rough right now. But eventually I'll smooth it out. and things will be more blended. And then once I get this good foundation down, then I will introduce some toning colors to bring the color more to life. Because right now it's a little bland, and it doesn't quite match up with what I need it to look like. Kind of need to turn this. How well is that in frame? It's not really in frame, is it? Let's see, I'll just flip it upside down. I don't really want it upside down, but can't really get it any better than this. I'm going to sharpen this pencil, so give me a second. All right. Can you post work in the community section? That is not our attempt at your tutorials because I don't use social media and still want feedback. Yeah, absolutely. On the community section on Patreon, yeah, you're more than welcome to post your stuff. Now, I will say that the community section on Patreon is about the worst designed thing that Patreon has. You'd really think that, considering how much money Patreon gets because of they take a chunk of all the money that support your creators with, and so they make a ton of money. You'd think they'd be able to come up with a better designed website. The website is awful. No joke. It's horribly designed, and they need to step up their game. It's really quite annoying. But the community section is probably one of the worst underused parts of the website, simply because if you post your work in the community section, I will get a notification saying that you did, and I'll be able to go over and look at it and comment on it and stuff. But that is where it ends. So you post it, I see it, I can comment on it, you can read it. I don't even know if you get notified if I comment on it, but if you respond, or if somebody else comments on it, or if anybody else interacts with it ever again, then I never know. So that's the problem with it. So if you post your work and I give you some feedback on it, which I'm more than happy to do, and you reply to my feedback with, say, another question or something like that, I will never know if you do that. So the only way that I would ever know is if I go back to your post to check in on whether or not you saw my comment, or you responded to it, or if you asked a question. And I can't do that with everybody that posts on there. I wish I had that kind of time to dedicate to such things. But without being notified that you're responding in any way, I can't just constantly go back and reload the page or whatnot. Oh, thank you, Shiny. I think I cut it again. So I had to cut my hair twice in the quarantine, and so I'm glad it looks good. Thank you for the compliment. I was streaming some video games yesterday over on Twitch, and one of my viewers gave me a compliment, said I was looking good, so appreciate that. I'm not going to get to the other shoulder here. I'm going to try to finish up this in the next like 10 minutes. The membership on YouTube instead of Patreon, I think you have to have 100,000 subscribers to do that. I thought about it, but it's not an option right now. Like it's not available. It's not an available option on my channel because some of the YouTubers that I'll check out a video of or something, they'll have that little join button below the video, and I'm like, what is this join button? And I checked to see if I could get that on my channel, but I can't. It just says that I'm not eligible or whatever. Now, actually, what I want to do, I want to hire somebody to build me a new website, and I essentially want to eliminate the Facebook group and bring that over in forum onto my website, and then I want to eliminate Patreon and instead host the membership on my own website. That way I can organize my tutorials in a way that makes sense, unlike Patreon, where they just have like this long feed that goes on forever and ever, and then the ability to click on tags to isolate certain things. Their Patreon is just retarded. Whoever manages that site needs to be fired, and they need to hire somebody that actually knows what they're doing. I've been wanting to do that for a really long time because too many complaints from people looking for tutorials, and they're like, I can't find anything on the site, and it's like, I wish there was something I could do about it. And what I can do about it is hire somebody to build me a new website so that I can get rid of Patreon, so that I can not have to worry about that, and I can organize all of my tutorials with a good searchable feature. Yeah, Carol, I think I remember you mentioning or asking me to find you a specific tutorial on Patreon. So many people have asked me, messaged me or whatnot, and asked, like, said, oh, I'm looking for this tutorial, I can't find it or whatever. And yeah, I understand. It's very, very annoying. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Yeah, there's no search option. There's no search option. I don't understand why they can't put in a search bar for keywords. So if somebody's looking for a hair tutorial on my channel, on my Patreon page, I mean, why can't they type in hair and then things with hair in the title pop up or something along those lines? Just very, very annoying. I can't imagine that a feature such as that would be difficult for somebody that creates a website like Patreon. I really just, I don't believe it for a second. Would the folks who have paid Patreon lose anything they have paid for if I switch? No. I would just, once I would, like, once I'm prepared to make the switch, what I would do is I would just close my Patreon page, and everybody that is signed up would, everybody that's signed up would just, they wouldn't be charged anything. And then everybody that wants to continue their subscription would just then sign up on my website. That would be the plan. This isn't something that's going to happen in the next week or even this year probably, but eventually it's something that I want to move towards. I just got to find the right person to do it for me, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to build the website. I don't want to do that stuff. I'd rather just pay somebody to do it for me. But I'm not prepared for that, so. All right, let's smooth this out a little bit. I have my trusty little paper blender, and I'm just going to smooth out the skin. This should help it look a little bit better, because it's still quite rough. There's still a lot of work to be done, but if you think about it, I mean, I colored a lot today. Like, a lot of the project is covered now with pastel, so to do that with pencils as fast as I did is what makes pastels so great in the first place. Could you imagine covering all of that with colored pencils in an hour and a half? Don't think so. I'd probably still be on that part of the arm if I was working with colored pencils. Still have a lot to do on the arm. Next week I'm going to keep working on this arm. I'm just going to not worry about the other stuff, and we'll do the fine tuning. Get some of the extra colors in here and get the arm looking good. Yeah, I might have to ask Wendy about that, if she'd be able to do that. She helped me migrate my website, but I don't know how experienced she is with what I'm asking. If you want to watch, yeah. So when I make the switch, like, we might be going into too much detail here. I probably shouldn't even have brought up the idea, because this is not something that's going to happen soon. So the specifics of your questions are a bit overkill for the topic, but everything that is on Patreon right now, I want to migrate that to my own website. So all the old tutorials, all of that stuff, that's going to come as well. Not only would it come over to my own website, but it's going to be so much more organized. The idea that I have is, like, to have a page with a list of the projects, and if you want to do a project, you click on a project, and that's going to open up another window that has all of the videos, like, right there. So you can click video 1, you can click video 2, something like that. I haven't put in a lot of thought on exactly how I would have it set up, but it'd probably be something like that. And then for all of the new tutorials, those would come out with a project, click on the project, here's the video, blah, blah, blah. So all of the live streams would still, everything would be the same, but you'd be able to actually navigate the gosh darn website. You'd be able to find the tutorials you want to watch without scrolling for, 2 years all the way down to find a video. It's not even a good setup for me as a creator when it comes to creating posts. It's obnoxious and annoying, and I have no way of organizing the website. Oh gosh, everything's fallen off the table now. All right. See, now that arm is smoother, actually looks like an arm. So I'm going to just smooth out the bicep and the shoulder here, and then I'm going to call it a day. So any last question you guys have, post them now, and then I'll get to them, and then I'm going to sign off and get ready to leave. I guess I still have a little bit of time. Maybe I'll make some food, get something to eat, and then prepare to leave. How much time would it take to complete a 12 by 18 picture, just like the kind I'm doing? It totally depends on how much time you want to put into it. I mean, if you're looking to create something that's photorealistic, you're talking 150, 200 hours. If you're talking something that's just realistic, you know, it depends on how experienced you are. If you're as experienced as I am, then it's going to take probably about 40 to 50 hours. If you're new, then you probably should just spend as much time as you can on it and get it looking the way that you want it to look, something that you can be proud of at the end. There's no good formula for time when it comes to artwork, because sometimes you run into problems. You get to a part where you're like, you can't quite get it right, and you can't figure out why, and then you have to like experiment and try some things out. So there's so many variables in what is going to take up your time, and honestly, the amount of time that it takes shouldn't be what's on your mind when you're working. You should just have fun and create the best thing that you can. That's but yeah, this is pretty close to 7. What did you say? 12 by 18? Yeah, this is pretty close to 12 by 18. It's a little bit bigger than that. It's probably around, I'd say it's probably closer to 15 by 30. This is in centimeters, this page. This is 30 by 40 centimeters, so. I'll just measure it in inches, I suppose. Okay, 12 by 15 and a half is what this size is in inches. So yeah, pretty close to that size. So I guess there will be an easy monthly subscription charge on this YouTube feature you're talking about. No, I'm not talking about a YouTube feature. No, there's not going to be any monthly subscription for YouTube. How long will I probably should not have brought up the thing with the Patreon. You guys are asking too specific of questions, and I am nowhere near even starting the process of doing it. It's not even in my schedule in any way whatsoever. It's something that I plan on doing in the future, and that future is so far away right now that I couldn't give you even a remote time frame. I can say that it's not happening this year. It is not happening this year. That is what I can tell you, and that is all I can tell you. Anything else, there's absolutely no need to worry about anything. If there's any change in that whatsoever, I swear to you, I would not keep it a secret. I was kind of just venting about how annoying Patreon is. Because I keep getting messages about not being able to find stuff, and I understand, because even I struggle to find things sometimes on my own gosh darn Patreon page. And it's very obnoxious, quite annoying. Okie dokie. I'm going to call this done for now. Wow, surprisingly, that pencil fell on the ground and it didn't break. I'm just going to take this glassine paper off so you can get a little bit of perspective on what it looks like. See, it looks like skin, right? Kind of looks like skin. There's still adjustments that need to be made. I didn't feather in to the highlights at all. The top side of this arm is being hit by the sunlight, so it's a little bit yellowish. Still need to work the shadows and the gradients a little bit. There's a nice purple tone that goes through the transition from the shadows to the highlights. And then I need to bring out the highlights a little bit, bring out the form, like right on the bicep or something like that. Like a little bit of the gray here, like there'd be like a tiny highlight kind of running through here. I don't know why I'm doing this right now, but I'm explaining it and doing it. So there's a little bit of a bright highlight kind of running through the bicep here, just bringing more form to it. A little bit of a highlight down here on this muscle. So there's still plenty of work that needs to be done, but you can see what I was able to do with just a few colors, right? I used 4 colors. All I did, you watched me apply that 462 over the entire skin, right? Like, there was nothing special about it. It was not difficult at all. I promise you, it was just coloring it in. All I did was stay within the lines, right? Anybody can do that. And then I used that brown color, what was it, 640, to just bring out a little bit of the form and bring in some of the shadows. That's it. Very, very simple process, and anybody can do this, and you'll have like a pretty good looking arm at this point. Now next week, like I said, I'm going to bring in a couple other colors, probably 3, maximum 4, but probably 3. And we're going to add a little bit of toning to the skin to just bring some life into it, because right now it's a little bit flat. And so we'll bring in a couple extra colors, warm up the skin, cool down the shadows, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then we'll do the same exact process that we did on the arm. We'll do it on the shoulder over here, and then we'll do it on the face. The face is no different. It's no different. It's basically 2 colors and then a little bit of form with the brown. And then we'll bring in the toning colors, bring the skin back to life, and the only thing left to do will be the hair, which probably be the most difficult part, most time-consuming part. But anyways, that is going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for coming by and hanging out. I appreciate it. I love hanging out with you guys. Thursday, we're going to continue on the colored pencil project, and that will be that. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.